Okay, so we're going to keep talking about writing equations of lines, but we're going to change up the information that we have, and we need to be able to write the equation of a line no matter what information we've got. And so by the end of today, you should be able to write a linear equation if you have the slope and a point, or if you have 2 points. We should be able to come up with the equation of a line. So first things first, quick review. For these two problems, identify the slope and the y-intercept. Take your time, give it a shot, and then restart the video to see if you got it right or not. But you should be able to do this from last class. Okay, so what'd you come up with? The slope for this guy is 1 over 1, right? Or 1. If you wrote down 1, that's fine. And then the y-intercept is 9. Okay? Here, the slope is negative 3/5, where the y-intercept is 0. There's a difference between not seeing a constant and not seeing a coefficient. If you don't see a constant, then that constant must be 0. Because you got to think about what can we add to something and not change it. Well, we add 0 and not change it. So, and then over here for the coefficient, coefficients are multiplied. So you have to think about, what do we multiply by to not change something, and that is we multiply by 1 to do that. So there's a difference between not seeing the coefficient versus not seeing a constant, and there it is. Okay. All right. Another quick reminder. From what we've done before, if you want to write the equation of a line, what two things must you have? And even from the last two problems that you just did, finding the slope and the y-intercept, you should be saying to yourself, well, we've got to know the slope. We've got to know the slope. And we need to know the y-intercept. That's what we had to have before to write the equation of a line. Okay. All right. So, apparently, if I ever want to write the equation of a line, I got to have those two things there. Another reminder: slope formula. Okay. And I like putting the subscripts here, so I can tell the difference between these two y's, y2, y1, and these two x's, x2, x1. Okay. All right, but that's your slope formula. Now, we want to write the equation of a line given this information, where we have a slope and a point. Well, we haven't really talked about how to do that. So how would we approach this? Well, if the slope is 3, or I like slope being a fraction, so 3 over 1, then what that means is, if I did the slope formula, then the answer that I must have gotten was 3 over 1. So anyway, in other words, we're going to start with the slope formula and then plug in some numbers that we know. Okay, now 2 comma 5, where are we going to put that? Well, remember that 2 comma 5 is an x and a y, and ultimately it doesn't matter where you put those. I like putting them here towards the end. Okay, it just makes the math a little bit easier. So what we're going to come up with is 3 over 1 equals, and since I'm going to plug 5 in for this y and 2 in for this x, we don't have 2 y's or 2 x's anymore, so the subscripts can go away. But you end up with this, right? Which is actually, honestly, this right here is the equation of a line. We just don't know what form. The form doesn't have a name. This isn't really any form that we ever use. We can get this in slope-intercept form pretty quickly by cross-multiplying. Okay? And I'll stop here and say, we have this y and this x still in, this y and this x still in our equation, and we should. Every equation of a line should have a y and an x in it. If you go back and look through your homework or look in the problems that we just did for just a couple minutes ago to review, every equation of a line has a y and an x in it. So we've got to make sure that we keep a y and an x in here. We don't want to plug in numbers, make up numbers, and plug them in for y and x. We want to keep these guys here. All right, so we're going to cross multiply. We're going to work on getting y isolated. So cross multiply, because we have a proportion, and that's how you solve a proportion. 1 times y minus 5 is just y minus 5. And then we distribute that 3. Remember, this is 3 times x minus 2. So you get y minus 5 equals, now distribute, 3x minus 6. Now to continue isolating y, we just add 5 to both sides. And so y is equal to 3x minus 1. And that's your equation in slope-intercept form. Okay? So, moral of the story is we start with the slope formula and just plug in what we know. We've got another one here. We have the slope and we have the point. So the slope formula says we got to subtract the y's and then divide by subtracting the x's. Now plug in what you know. Negative 1/3 is m, so plug that in. And then we have an x and a y here. Okay, so plug it in for x and y. So we go y minus a negative 4 over x minus 3. Now this becomes plus, so we get negative 1/3 equals y plus 4 over x minus 3. Now we're going to cross multiply, and when we do, I'm going to take this negative up here with the 1. Math's a little bit easier that way. So we get 3 times y plus 4, 4, not 14, equals negative 1 times x minus 3. So distribute, and then distribute here. Now we're going to subtract 12. And we get 3y equals negative x. We got to combine these two terms, minus 9. And then we're going to divide everything by 3. And I'll bring it up here as I'm running out of room. We get y equals negative 1/3 x minus 3. Now when you're finished writing the equation, your slope should be the same as the slope that was given. And in this equation it is. So we're probably on the right track here. We're on the right path. So try this guy on your own. Stop the video, give it a shot, and then start it again and see how you did. Okay, so what'd you come up with? You should have 3/4 equals y minus 2 over x plus 1. Then we cross multiply. And then we distribute here and here. We get 3x plus 3 equals 4y minus 8. Now add 8. And you got to add the like terms. So we get 3x plus 11. Divide everything by 4. And so y ends up being, and I'm going to, well, I don't want to turn this around. So we get 3/4 x plus 11/4 equals y. Okay, is that what you got? Good. So apparently you don't have to have the slope in the y-intercept. None of these points, this one, or this one was the y-intercept. So if we go back up to our notes, what two things do you need to write the equation of a line? Apparently it's not slope in y-intercept. Apparently all you need is the slope and a point that the line goes through, or a point that's on the line. And we can get it done. Okay? All right, I got another one here. Give it a shot. Stop the video and see, and then start it again and see how you did. Okay, how'd you do? So if the slope is 0, I'm still going to make it a fraction. Put it 0 over 1. And I'm still going to use the slope formula. Get y minus a negative 8 is y plus 8 over x minus 7. Now when we cross multiply, watch what happens. 0 times this is just 0. 1 times y plus 8 is y plus 8. Okay, now we subtract 8. And so y is equal to negative 8, and that's the equation. Which should make some sense, because if you remember, a line with the slope of 0 is a horizontal line. Remember Hoy, Vux and Hoy? A slope of 0 means it's a horizontal line. So it should be a horizontal line, and a horizontal line has the same y coordinate all the time. So a horizontal line going straight across means that, and this is at negative 8, that the y value is the same everywhere. Every point on that line has the same y value, and so you might as well write the equation where you just say that y equals negative 8, no matter what x is. Okay? But if you don't remember that, if you don't remember Hoy, you can always set the slope equation up, plug in the numbers, and see what happens. We can make this 0 over 1, again, because we wanted to make 0 a fraction. Okay? Another one here. Now, instead of slope being 0, now your slope is undefined. What are you going to do then? Well, how do you get an undefined slope? Well, you divide by 0, right? That's undefined. You're not allowed to divide by 0, so that would be undefined. Well, you got to have a numerator in this fraction for the slope. What is that numerator going to be? Ultimately, it can be whatever you want it to be. So make it easy and just make it 1. Okay? Then you just plug into your slope formula. Y minus 0 over x minus 3. And cross multiply. 0 times this is just 0. 1 times x minus 3 is x minus 3. Add 3. So x equals 3. And again, if you remember Vux, that should make sense. Undefined slope means it's going to be a vertical line, and the equation is going to be x equals some number. Vertical line, and since the coordinate is, the point is 1, 2, 3, 0, that means your vertical line will go through 3, 0. Theoretically, mine doesn't. But anyway, and then every coordinate on this line will have an x value of 3, so it makes sense to just write x equals 3. Okay? Anyway, if that doesn't make sense, then just keep using the slope formula. All right. Got another one. Give it a shot. Stop the video. See how you do. Okay. Slope, 1 over 1. Your equation would end up looking like y plus 5, right, because this is negative 5, over x plus 4, right, because that's negative. Cross multiply. You get y plus 5 equals x plus 4. And now subtract 5, and so y equals x minus 1. And that's it. Okay? All right, quick reminder. How do you find the slope if you only have 2 points, right? We don't have a graph, so how are we going to find the slope? Well, these 2 points are on the line, and slope tells you how you walk from one point to the next. So just use slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Doesn't matter which one's which, as long as x2 and y2 are at the same place, and x1, y1 are in the same place. Right? So, y2 is 3, y1 is negative 2, x2 is negative 2, x1 is 1. This becomes plus plus. 3 plus 2 is 5. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3, and so your slope is negative 5/3. Okay? Another one, real quick. Slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can label them if you want. I'm going to go 5, oh, sorry, not 5. 3 minus 0 over 5 minus 0, and you get 3. Ugh. 3 over 5. And so the slope is 3 over 5. So we can find the slope from 2 points if we need to. We know that. We've done that before. Here's how that can be used here. If I want to write the equation of a line, but now instead of having the slope already, I've got to go find it. Now we've got 2 points, so finding the slope should be no problem. But we have to have, we said before, back in our notes, that we have to have the slope, and we have to have a point. We have to have a point. Okay? We already have a point. As a matter of fact, we've got 2 points, but I need the slope. So we go, let's see, x2, y2, x1, y1. And then we plug in. y2 is 1 minus y1 is 3. x2 is negative 3. x1 is minus, so it's minus a negative 1. Plus, plus, we get negative 2 over negative 2, which is just 1 over 1. Now we have the slope and we have a point, and now so we can go back to doing what we were doing just a couple of problems ago, where we're setting up the slope formula and plugging in our slope, and now we just need to plug in 1 point. Remember I said that every equation, every linear equation has an x and a y in it, and so we need to leave the x and the y in. We just need to plug in one of these points. And it doesn't matter which one. It really doesn't. I'm going to choose this one. No particular rhyme or reason. I'm just going to do that. Make that a plus. We cross multiply. We get y minus 1 equals x plus 3. Now we add 1, and so y equals x plus 4. Okay? So there you go. We have to have a slope and a point. We didn't have the slope here, so we had to go find it. Once we find the slope, we can go back into slope formula, plug in the slope, and then just plug in one of the points. So we have our x and our y in our equation. Okay? Got another one here. Let's try this. And be careful, because your slope's going to come out kind of weird. Okay, let's make this x2, y2, x1, y1. And then set up our slope formula. So we go 3 minus 5 over negative 7 minus a negative 7. Plus, plus. And we get negative 2 over 0. Now, the slope is undefined. If you can remember Vux, this becomes very, very easy. It's an undefined slope. It's going to be a vertical line, and so the equation should be x equals whatever the x number is. And you can probably guess by looking. I'm going to go ahead and use the slope formula. Going to go the long route. Okay, remember we have to have a y and an x, so leave that in here. That leaves just 1 point to plug in. So we can go y minus 3 equals x minus a negative 7. Make that plus plus. And then we cross multiply. 0 times y minus 3 is just 0. Negative 2 times x plus 7. Distribute. Add 14. Divide by negative 2. And now your equation just has an x in it, and it's x equals negative 7. And that's because of, and again, Vux helps us here. X equals whatever that number is, whatever the x value is. And the x in both of these points was negative 7. Since the x's were the same, then your equation is just going to be x equals negative 7. Okay? Getting the hang of this yet? Got a couple more. Let's try this. I'll let you try this on your own. Stop the video, try it based off the other 2 examples, and then see what you come up with. Okay, gotta have the slope first. x2, y2, x1, y1. So we go 6 minus 2 over negative 1 minus 3. 6 minus 2 is 4. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. So your slope is negative 1, or negative 1 over 1, which is what I'm going to leave it, because we're going to cross multiply here in just a second. Now, plug back into the slope formula, but this time leave one of the points out. It doesn't matter which one you plug back in. Make this plus plus. I'm going to move this negative sign up to where it's in the numerator, and now when I cross multiply, I get 1 times y minus 6, which is just y minus 6, negative 1 times x plus 1. So we go y minus 6 equals negative x minus 1, and now when we add 6, we get y equals negative x plus 5. Is that what you got? I hope so. Got one more. Okay, we got one more. Again, give it a shot. See what you come up with. Stop the video and then start it again to check it. Alright, what'd you come up with? Got to have the slope first. So we're going to go negative 2 minus 2 over negative 2 minus 10. This is going to be negative 4 over negative 12, or reduced to 1 over 3. I like my slope being a fraction. Now, I'm going to plug one point back in so I get my y and my x still in my equation. I'm going to use this guy because the math looks like it might be a little bit easier. Y minus a negative 2, x minus a negative 2. These are both going to become plus. Now we cross multiply. 1 times x plus 2 is x plus 2. 3 times y plus 2 gives us x plus 2 equals 3y plus 6. Now subtract 6, and you get x minus 4 equals 3y. Now you got to divide everything by 3. And so you get 1/3 x minus 4/3 equals y. And that should be your equation. Okay? So that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay? Homework's out in Canvas. Give it a shot and let me know if you have any questions.